The hum of the bowling alley filled the air, a mixture of clattering pins, laughter, and the faint scent of buttery popcorn that seemed to linger in every corner. Neon lights flickered along the lanes, casting playful reflections on the polished wooden floors, while the walls were decorated with vibrant posters of professional bowlers in mid-throw. In the center of it all, a group of friends had staked their claim to a couple of lanes, chatting animatedly as they waited for the arrival of Jason. Empty soda cups and half-eaten plates of fries littered the table nearby, evidence of their impatience mixed with hunger. The anticipation of Jason's entrance made the conversations lively, yet slightly distracted, as everyone speculated about whether he had gotten lost or simply decided to test their patience. Michael strode in a few minutes later, holding Emma's hand tightly. He was dressed casually, his untucked shirt and jeans giving him a relaxed look that matched his easygoing personality. Emma, on the other hand, seemed slightly out of place, her crisp blouse and neatly pressed skirt reflecting her attention to detail and preference for order. Michael's smile brightened when he spotted his friends waving at him, and he led Emma through the small crowd toward their reserved area. "Hey everyone, sorry we're late," he called, trying to mask the faint blush creeping over his cheeks. Emma offered a polite smile but remained quiet, scanning the room as if trying to map out every possible escape route from the chaos around them. Once they were settled, the friends fell into an easy rhythm of teasing and chatter. The conversation drifted from trivial complaints about the loud music to debates over whose bowling technique was the most effective. Emma, however, seemed absorbed in her own world, a small paperback peeking out of her purse. She adjusted her glasses and leaned back in her chair, quietly reading while occasionally glancing at the group with mild curiosity. Michael noticed immediately. "Emma, what are you reading there? Another one of those romance novels?" he asked, a teasing lilt of his voice. Emma looked up, a faint blush rising in her cheeks. "Yes," she admitted, holding up the book slightly. "I can't help it. They're entertaining, but I don't think any of it is real. You know, the perfect, sweeping romances that end with love conquering all obstacles? That just doesn't exist in real life." Her tone was firm, almost defensive, as if daring anyone to contradict her. A ripple of laughter spread through the group, and Michael exchanged a quick glance with his friends, a silent signal passing between them. "Ah, so you've decided to be the cynic tonight," Michael said with a playful grin. "Come on, Emma, you really think that love like that can't exist? There are plenty of people out there who have stories just like the ones in your books." Emma shook her head, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I've just seen too much," she replied softly. "Romantic gestures, grand declarations, all that, it feels staged, scripted. Real love is messy, complicated, and mostly boring. That's what I've learned." Her eyes flicked toward the group again, daring someone to prove her wrong. "That's exactly what we're here for," said one of Michael's friends, a tall man named Ethan who had a mischievous glint in his eyes. "We're going to tell you a story, Emma, a real story, not something you pull off a bookstore shelf. A story about two people who were completely different, whose worlds collided in the most unexpected ways, and yet, well, they found love." Emma arched an eyebrow skeptically. "Real story? Are we talking about some feel-good anecdote, or are you planning to tell me about a fairy tale that ends with a wedding?" She closed the book lightly, signaling her readiness to hear what they had to say, though her expression remained unconvinced. Michael leaned forward, clasping his hands together. "It's real," he promised, "not just some story we made up to entertain ourselves. These are people who existed in our city, whose paths crossed in ways you wouldn't believe. They weren't perfect, they weren't meant to be, but somehow love found them anyway." He paused for effect, letting the words sink in as Emma tilted her head, curious despite herself. Ethan grinned and jumped in. "It all starts with two very different people. One of them owns a small trucking company, laid back, a little messy, and a total scatterbrain. The other is a fashion designer from New York, disciplined, organized, and accustomed to having everything planned down to the last detail. You can probably guess how well they got along at first, he said. Emma's lips twitched into a reluctant smile. I suppose that would be a disaster waiting to happen, she murmured. Oh, it was, Michael admitted, shaking his head. But that's the beauty of it. They had nothing in common on paper, and yet something kept pulling them together. It's not just about the grand gestures or the perfect dates, it's about how they navigated the chaos and found a connection despite it all. Lisa, another friend sitting nearby, chimed in, her voice light and teasing. And believe me, Emma, if you think you've read all the cliches in those romance novels, you haven't seen half of what these two went through. From accidents with cars to chasing each other across city streets, it was the kind of love that's both hilarious and heart-stopping. Emma leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms, but there was a flicker of intrigue in her eyes. "All right," she said slowly, "you've got my attention, but don't expect me to swoon just yet. I'm still convinced that love like that only exists in fiction." Michael grinned, squeezing her hand. "We're not asking you to believe it right away. Just listen. Let us tell you how two people, completely different, stubborn as hell, and ridiculously stubborn in love, managed to find each other." For the first time that evening, Emma allowed herself to relax. She set her book aside and leaned forward, ready to be drawn into the story. The sounds of the bowling alley, pins falling, laughter echoing, shoes squeaking across polished wood, seemed to fade into the background. All that mattered was the tale about to unfold, a story of chaos, laughter, heartbreak, and, ultimately, love. As the friends began to recount the events that had shaped Ryan and Claire's journey, Emma listened with wide eyes, captivated by the idea that perhaps, just perhaps, the perfect kind of love might exist after all. And for the first time that evening, the skeptic in her felt a tiny spark of hope. Just then, the automatic doors swung open, and Jason walked in with his partner Lisa, waving enthusiastically. The group erupted in greetings, their laughter filling the alley once more. The story of love, Emma realized, had begun, and she was eager to hear every detail. Ryan's office was exactly what one would expect from a man who ran a trucking company on his own terms: chaotic, cluttered, and somehow alive with energy. Stacks of paperwork teetered precariously on the edge of his desk, half-empty coffee cups formed a miniature mountain on the corner, and a faded corkboard displayed delivery schedules in no particular order. Despite the mess, Ryan moved with an ease that suggested he thrived in this disorder, glancing at his computer screen while juggling a phone call about a delayed shipment. His broad smile never faltered, even when he realized he had forgotten to file the most critical delivery form. "Yeah, I'll handle it," he said into the phone, brushing crumbs off his sleeve. "Don't worry, I've got it covered." Outside the office, the hum of downtown Austin carried on, blending with the distant sound of car horns and chatter from nearby cafes. Across town, Claire stepped out of a sleek black sedan, her posture perfect, her designer shoes clicking sharply on the sidewalk. She was every bit the image of meticulous elegance, her tailored jacket pressed without a wrinkle, her handbag carefully balanced on her forearm. Claire had moved from New York to Austin to live with her aunt, who was determined that Claire make the most of every opportunity the city offered. "You have to be prepared for everything here, Claire," her aunt had said before she left. "Austin might seem laid back, but organization wins every time." Claire had taken the words seriously, applying them to every detail of her life since her arrival. Ryan's and Claire's worlds could not have been more different, and neither of them realized that they were on a collision course that would change everything. Ryan leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms with a satisfied sigh as he reviewed the day's schedule. He was a man who believed in going with the flow, in making things happen without overthinking, and in finding joy in small victories. A successful trucking business had been built from nothing, relying on long hours, perseverance, and the occasional gamble. His team, organized and practical, handled the technical details, leaving Ryan free to focus on the bigger picture, or, more often, to enjoy life. Meanwhile, Claire walked into a boutique in the heart of the city, scanning the racks of carefully arranged clothing with a discerning eye. She took note of each item's fabric, color, and cut, making mental calculations about how each piece could fit into her meticulously curated wardrobe. Her life was orderly, structured, and mapped out in minute detail. Unlike Ryan, who thrived on improvisation, Claire relied on careful planning to navigate her world. "I need this dress, the shoes to match, and don't forget the alterations," she instructed the boutique assistant, her voice polite but firm. Every movement she made spoke of precision, control, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. That afternoon, fate intervened. Claire had an appointment at a downtown cafe to meet a client, and as she maneuvered her car into a tight parking spot, she miscalculated. The sleek sedan bumped against something solid, a large truck parked nearby. Startled, she jumped out, her heart racing, and realized that the truck belonged to none other than Ryan. "Hey," Ryan called from his office window above the street, "careful down there." Claire, flustered and embarrassed, waved awkwardly. I'm so sorry, I didn't see your truck there." She adjusted her glasses and approached the truck, already anticipating the confrontation she dreaded. Her day, she thought, could not get worse. Ryan emerged from his truck, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair tousled as if he had just run a marathon through chaos. "It's okay," he said with a wide grin, holding up his hands in a gesture of calm. "No harm done, yet. But tell me you've got insurance." Claire blinked, momentarily taken aback by his cheerful demeanor. "Yes, of course," she said, her voice slightly higher than usual. "I'm very responsible." She bit her lip, feeling the tension between her polished composure and the messiness of the situation. Ryan tilted his head, looking at her carefully. "Responsible, huh? That's good, because this truck doesn't exactly fit into neat little boxes." He gestured toward the vehicle with a casual wave of his hand, as if the clutter of his work life were nothing to be afraid of. Claire, already flustered, tried to steady herself. I wasn't expecting to hit your truck. It was an accident, really. She stopped, realizing she was rambling in the face of Ryan's calm confidence. "That's fine," Ryan said, still smiling. "Accidents happen. No harm, no foul. But you might want to check your brakes next time." He nodded toward the car, and Claire's eyes widened in horror. Her meticulous attention to detail had failed her at the worst possible moment. Ryan's laughter, warm and infectious, broke the tension. Claire, despite herself, let out a small chuckle. There was something about his messy, cheerful presence that was oddly disarming. "I really am sorry," she said again, more sincerely this time. "I can't believe I—" "Hey, relax," Ryan interrupted gently. "You're fine. Trust me, I've seen worse." His easygoing nature contrasted sharply with Claire's meticulous, controlled approach, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of curiosity rather than frustration. As they exchanged information and prepared to move the car, Ryan's office phone rang. He glanced at it briefly, then shrugged. "Business as usual," he muttered, and went back to helping Claire maneuver her car out of the minor predicament. Claire, meanwhile, couldn't help but notice the way he seemed completely at ease in the chaos, as if the mess around him were part of a rhythm she couldn't yet understand. "You really do run a trucking company and all this?" Claire asked, gesturing toward the scattered papers and clutter of his truck. "Yep," Ryan said with a grin. "Chaos and coffee. That's my secret." Claire shook her head, smiling despite herself. "I don't know how you manage. I like order, predictability, clean lines. And I like adventure," Ryan said, leaning against the truck with a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "But maybe we can learn a thing or two from each other." At that moment, neither of them realized how true his words would become. The collision of their worlds, messy and carefree, against meticulous and controlled, was only the beginning of a story that would challenge everything they thought they knew about love, life, and each other. For now, all they shared was a brief, awkward, yet strangely electric encounter on a bustling Austin street, the first spark of something neither of them could yet name. The downtown cafe was buzzing with the usual lunchtime crowd. Waiters weaving between tables, coffee machines steaming relentlessly, and the hum of conversations blending into a constant urban symphony. Claire had been running late for a client meeting and was already frazzled, mentally running through the notes she had prepared. She didn't notice the large truck parked awkwardly along the curb, slightly encroaching into the street. Determined not to waste another moment, she pulled her car into a spot she thought was safe, not realizing that her angle was slightly off. "All right, just a quick," Claire muttered to herself as she began to back up. But the moment she released the brake, there was a sharp, metallic thud. Her stomach dropped as she heard the unmistakable sound of metal colliding with metal. She froze, heart racing. "Oh no, oh no, oh no," she whispered, fumbling for her seatbelt release. Claire's eyes darted toward the large truck, now dented at the rear corner, and panic set in. She couldn't believe she had hit someone else's vehicle in broad daylight. Ryan, who had been leaning against his truck scrolling through messages on his phone, heard the noise and looked up just in time to see Claire's car making contact with the back of his vehicle. His initial reaction was surprise, followed quickly by a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Seriously?" he muttered, pushing himself upright. He walked over to the car, raising a hand in a gesture of calm. "Hey, are you okay? Nobody's hurt, right?" Claire rolled down her window, flustered, and her words tumbled out in a rush. I'm so sorry. I didn't see your truck. You were just right there, and She gestured helplessly at the dent she had just created. I can't believe this is happening." Her voice quivered as she tried to control the rising panic. Ryan studied her for a moment, noting the crisp blouse, the neat skirt, and the polished shoes, clearly someone who was not used to dealing with the chaos of the streets. He blinked, then chuckled softly. "You didn't see my truck?" he asked lightly. "It's hard to miss, but okay, accidents happen." Claire bristled at the comment, her stress turning into defensive frustration. "Well, maybe if your truck were parked properly, none of this would have happened," she snapped. Her tone was sharp, her fingers gripping the steering wheel tightly. She hadn't meant to be confrontational, but in her panic, she needed someone to blame. Ryan raised his hands in surrender, trying not to laugh at her intensity. Okay, I get it. It's my fault. My giant, shiny truck was obviously in the wrong place." He smiled, trying to diffuse the tension. "No harm done, yet." But before they could continue, the car betrayed Claire completely. In her flustered state, she had neglected to engage the parking brake properly. The vehicle lurched forward, tires skidding across the asphalt, and with a terrifying groan, rolled down a slight incline and landed unceremoniously in a shallow ditch beside the cafe. Claire screamed, frozen in shock as she clutched the steering wheel. Ryan dashed forward, grabbing the door handle and stabilizing the car. "Whoa, hold on, you've got this!" he shouted over the commotion, steadying the vehicle with one hand while motioning for passersby to keep their distance. Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she realized just how precarious the situation had become. After a tense few moments, Ryan managed to stop the car from slipping any further. He jumped back and took a deep breath, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Okay, deep breaths. You're fine. No one's hurt, and the car, well, it's mostly fine. Probably." He squinted at the vehicle, assessing the damage. "Looks like we'll need a tow, though." Claire, still trembling, looked at him with wide eyes. "A tow? My car?" She bit her lip, realizing that her carefully controlled, perfectly organized life had just collided, literally, with chaos. I can't believe this. I was supposed to meet my client in 10 minutes. Ryan smiled reassuringly, trying to ease her tension. "Hey, it's all right. Things like this happen. No one died. And, believe it or not, this kind of adventure makes life interesting." Claire shot him a skeptical glance, unconvinced that a car in a ditch could ever be considered interesting. By now, a small crowd had gathered, curious about the commotion. Some had their phones out, recording the minor disaster. Ryan waved them off with a grin. "Nothing to see here, folks. Just a typical day in Austin." Then he turned back to Claire. "Listen, I'll tow your car to the nearest garage. We can sort this out, and no one has to call insurance just yet." Claire hesitated, unsure whether to trust this stranger who seemed oddly cheerful amid the chaos. You'll help me? Even though it's my fault?" she asked, her voice softening. "Of course," Ryan said, clapping her lightly on the shoulder. "Consider it my good deed for the day. Besides, I've seen worse. Don't worry about it." Within minutes, Ryan had arranged for the car to be lifted onto a tow truck. Claire watched in amazement as he directed the driver with precision and ease, coordinating the process with a calm she could barely comprehend. It was clear he was used to dealing with unpredictability, and while she remained tense, she found herself strangely impressed by his competence under pressure. As they walked toward the tow truck, Claire finally managed a small smile. I'm really sorry about all of this," she admitted, shaking her head. "I didn't mean to cause so much trouble." Ryan shrugged, grinning. "Don't worry about it. Everyone has a rough day now and then. Besides, you gave me a story to tell my friends, right?" He winked, and Claire couldn't help but let out a quiet laugh, her tension easing slightly. For the first time, they both paused and studied each other. Claire noted the easygoing confidence in Ryan's demeanor, the way he seemed to thrive in messiness, and the unshakable optimism that surrounded him. Ryan, in turn, observed the meticulous care with which Claire approached even this chaotic situation, her attention to detail and controlled reactions reflecting a world entirely different from his own. As the tow truck drove off with Claire's car, Ryan called after her, "Hey, don't worry, I'll make sure it gets to a good place. And maybe next time, watch those brakes?" Claire laughed, a sound that surprised her with its lightness. "Next time, I'll pay more attention, I promise." She hesitated, then added, "Thank you for helping me." Ryan grinned and tipped an imaginary hat. "Anytime. And hey, this is just the beginning. You'll see, I have a knack for turning disasters into, well, less disastrous stories." Little did they know, this chaotic afternoon would set the stage for everything that followed. Their worlds, one meticulously controlled, the other wonderfully chaotic, had collided in spectacular fashion. And though neither could foresee it at the time, the sparks ignited that day would shape a journey neither of them would ever forget. The sun had just begun to dip below the horizon, casting a warm amber glow over the gardens of the wedding venue. Soft music drifted from the gazebo where the string quartet had begun to play, and the gentle clinking of glasses mingled with laughter and chatter as guests mingled beneath twinkling fairy lights. Claire stepped lightly across the manicured lawn, her heels sinking slightly into the grass as she scanned the crowd for familiar faces. Her client's cousin was getting married, and she had promised to attend, eager to make a good impression while also enjoying the celebration. Claire had spent the afternoon arranging her outfit and rehearsing polite small talk, determined to maintain her usual polished demeanor. She smoothed her dress once more and adjusted the small clutch in her hand, exhaling slowly. "All right," she whispered to herself, "just a few hours of socializing, nothing complicated, easy." But the universe had other plans. Across the lawn, Ryan leaned casually against a white wrought iron fence, holding a glass of lemonade and watching guests trickle in. His dark hair was slightly tousled from the afternoon breeze, and his shirt, while wrinkled, had a relaxed charm that somehow suited him perfectly. He had been invited through a mutual friend, and while he wasn't used to formal events, he had promised himself he would at least attempt to behave. The sun glinted off the glasses in his hand, and he smirked as he caught sight of the bride and groom walking toward the gazebo, their smiles radiant with joy. Ryan's attention shifted when he noticed a familiar figure approaching from across the lawn. Claire. She looked as poised and meticulous as ever, her posture impeccable and her expression cautious. Ryan's lips curved into a smile. He remembered the chaos of their first meeting vividly. "Well, well," he muttered to himself, "look who it is, the girl from the ditch incident." Claire, meanwhile, spotted him and froze briefly. Memories of that afternoon, the dented truck, her rolling car, and Ryan's unexpectedly calm demeanor flashed through her mind. She had been embarrassed, humiliated even, but the way he had handled the situation had left a lasting impression. Her pulse quickened slightly, though she tried to mask it with her usual composed expression. Ryan approached, his grin easy and unthreatening. "Claire," he said warmly, extending a hand, "fancy seeing you here." Claire hesitated for a moment before offering her hand, a small, tentative smile breaking through. "Ryan," she replied softly, I didn't expect to see you. It's been a while." "Too long, I'd say," Ryan answered lightly, though his eyes held a spark of curiosity. "How have you been?" Claire took a breath, deciding to bridge the gap between them. "I've been, well, busy," she admitted, "and I wanted to apologize for the first time you met. I judged you unfairly, and I shouldn't have." Her voice was sincere, tinged with a vulnerability she rarely allowed anyone to see. Ryan's expression softened. "Apology accepted," he said with a shrug. "Though, to be fair, that day was pretty memorable for both of us. I think chaos has a way of sticking in your mind." He chuckled, and Claire found herself relaxing slightly at his easygoing nature. They began to walk slowly along the garden path, side by side, as the festivities continued around them. Claire felt the weight of her initial judgment lift just a little, replaced by a curiosity she hadn't expected. "I didn't realize how different your world is," she said, glancing at him. "Your truck, your business, it seems so chaotic." Ryan laughed. "Chaos is kind of my specialty," he admitted. "But, you know, it has its perks. Keeps life interesting, keeps you on your toes. I imagine your world is, well, very different." "Very different indeed," replied, smiling faintly. "Everything is planned, organized, predictable. I like to know what's coming next. I thrive on structure." She paused, then added, "And yet, seeing you today, it makes me wonder if there's something to be learned from a little unpredictability." Ryan tilted his head, intrigued by her honesty. "Unpredictability can be fun," he said thoughtfully. "It can throw you off balance at first, sure, but it also makes moments more memorable. Sometimes it's where you find the best stories." Claire laughed softly, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. "You make it sound almost appealing," she admitted. "I suppose it's the same reason people come to weddings. They hope for a little unexpected joy." Their conversation was interrupted by a friend who approached, asking Ryan if he would join the group for a toast. He nodded, then glanced at Claire. "Care to join me?" he asked. Claire hesitated, then smiled. "I think I'd like that," she said, and together they walked over to the small circle of guests. The music swelled as glasses were raised, and the moment felt intimate despite the crowd around them. They clinked glasses lightly, sharing a smile that was both tentative and sincere. Over the next hour, Ryan and Claire found themselves drawn into conversation repeatedly, often finding quiet corners away from the bustle of the party. They discovered small commonalities amidst the vast differences in their lives. Ryan loved spontaneous road trips. Claire enjoyed sketching fashion designs in her free time. Ryan confessed he had a soft spot for coffee shop pastries, and Claire admitted she had once considered opening a boutique in Austin. Each revelation chipped away at the initial barriers, and for the first time, Claire began to see Ryan not just as a messy truck owner, but as a person with depth, humor, and charm. At one point, they found themselves sitting on a low stone wall near a fountain, the water glimmering under the fairy lights. Claire looked at Ryan and smiled, her earlier skepticism softened. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd meet someone like you at a wedding, not in a million years." Ryan grinned, his eyes twinkling. "And yet, here we are," he replied. "I'd say that's a good sign. Maybe chaos and order can get along after all." Claire laughed quietly. "Maybe, but don't let that go to your head." Ryan shook his head, still smiling. "No worries, I'm not that arrogant. Yet." By the time the evening drew to a close, Claire realized she had enjoyed Ryan's company more than she had expected. The warmth of his laughter, the ease of his conversation, and the way he had handled her initial wariness made a lasting impression. For his part, Ryan felt a spark of curiosity about this meticulous, controlled woman who could challenge him with a single glance, yet still smile in his presence. As the guests began to leave, Ryan turned to Claire. "I had a good time tonight," he said, "and I hope we can do this again sometime." Claire hesitated, then nodded, feeling a small thrill of anticipation. "I think I'd like that," she replied, her voice soft but confident. They parted that evening with a handshake that lingered a fraction too long, a shared smile that spoke volumes, and a sense that their story had only just begun. In that moment, amidst the music, laughter, and fading fairy lights, a tentative friendship was born, one that promised adventures, challenges, and perhaps something more, if they were willing to let it. Little did either of them know, the chaos of their first meeting had planted a seed, and the garden of possibilities was beginning to grow. The early morning sun had barely peeked over the horizon when Ryan pulled up in his truck, engine rumbling softly, parked outside Claire's aunt's house. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of dew on grass and the distant hum of early commuters. Claire stepped outside, adjusting her sunglasses and clutching a small bag, her usual meticulousness evident in her perfectly tied scarf and neatly pressed pants. She had been surprised when Ryan had called her the night before, inviting her on a spontaneous road trip through the Texas Hill Country. "I hope you're ready for a little adventure," Ryan said, leaning casually against the truck, a wide grin spreading across his face. "No schedules, no deadlines, just the open road and a little chaos." Claire arched an eyebrow, a mix of skepticism and amusement crossing her face. "Chaos?" she repeated, tilting her head. "I don't usually do chaos. I have plans, lists, schedules." Ryan laughed, brushing a hand through his tousled hair. "Lists are fine, Claire, but sometimes life has a way of writing its own itinerary. Trust me, you'll like this." He opened the truck's door and gestured for her to get in. Claire hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside, realizing there was no turning back now. The truck rumbled to life, and as they drove out of Austin, the urban skyline gradually gave way to rolling hills, green pastures, and winding country roads. Claire pressed her hand against the doorframe, taking in the scenery. "It's beautiful," she admitted softly. "I've never seen anything like this. It's so different from New York, or even Austin." Ryan grinned at her reaction, keeping one hand on the wheel. "That's the hill country for you. Peaceful, wide open, and full of surprises. You've got to love the freedom of it." He gestured toward a small herd of cows grazing near a fence. "And those guys? The locals." Claire laughed quietly, shaking her head. "I never imagined I'd be so fascinated by cows." She glanced out the window at the golden fields stretching endlessly. "It's refreshing. I think I could get used to this kind of quiet." They drove in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds being the truck's engine and the occasional chirp of birds. Ryan broke the silence, glancing at her with a teasing grin. "So, Miss Organized, how does it feel to trade city chaos for country chaos?" Claire raised an eyebrow, smirking despite herself. "It's tolerable, I think, but don't let me get too comfortable. I might start expecting this to be perfectly planned, like a guided tour or something." Ryan laughed, shaking his head. "No guided tours here, just the road, the scenery, and a little unpredictability. That's the beauty of it." As they meandered along the winding roads, Ryan pointed out small towns, antique shops, and roadside diners that seemed frozen in time. "See that place?" he said, nodding toward a small white building with a faded sign reading Hillside Cafe. "Best pie you'll ever have, and the people there, friendlier than anyone in the city." Claire tilted her head, intrigued despite her natural skepticism. "Friendly strangers? I'll have to see it to believe it," she said with a soft laugh. "In New York, people barely make eye contact with you on the subway." "Exactly," Ryan said, grinning. "Here, people actually talk to each other. Sometimes it's the little things that make life worthwhile." Eventually, they pulled into the cafe, its small parking lot nearly empty. The air smelt faintly of baked goods and strong coffee, a comforting aroma that immediately put Claire at ease. They stepped inside, and the warmth of the interior contrasted sharply with the crisp morning outside. Wooden tables, checkered tablecloths, and an old jukebox in the corner gave the cafe a timeless charm. Claire took a deep breath, soaking in the atmosphere. "I could stay here forever," she murmured, smiling at the simplicity of it all. Ryan grinned, leading her to a booth by the window. "Then you'd have to try the pie. Trust me, it's life-changing." As they ordered coffee and a slice of pecan pie to share, they fell into easy conversation. Ryan told her stories about his childhood in small-town Texas, about long summer days riding bikes through cornfields, and the countless adventures he had with his friends before starting the trucking company. Claire, in turn, shared memories from her childhood in New York, her early days in fashion school, and the pressures of living up to her family's expectations. "I never realized how different our lives were," Claire said softly, tracing a pattern on the table with her finger. "You grew up surrounded by open fields and simplicity, while I was everything scheduled, everything measured. I think that's why our worlds collided so spectacularly the first time we met." Ryan smiled warmly, and yet here we are, finding common ground over coffee and pie. Life's funny like that, isn't it? Claire laughed quietly. "It is. I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised that you'd drag me into this little adventure. You thrive on unpredictability, and I'm learning to appreciate it." They finished their coffee, and as they stepped back into the truck, Ryan handed Claire a small map of the surrounding area. "Thought you might like to see where we're headed next. No pressure, of course." Claire studied the map, noting the various points of interest he had marked. "This looks manageable," she said with a small smile, "and I suppose I can tolerate a little spontaneity." The drive continued, taking them through rolling hills dotted with wildflowers, rustic barns, and winding rivers that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Ryan pointed out hidden trails, old windmills, and even a small waterfall tucked away behind a grove of trees. Claire, usually reserved and cautious, felt herself relaxing in the face of the breathtaking scenery and Ryan's infectious enthusiasm. At one point, they stopped along the side of a quiet country road to take photos of the landscape. Ryan handed Claire his camera with a grin. "Your turn to capture some chaos," he said. Claire raised an eyebrow, laughing. "Chaos, huh? I'm not sure my photography skills are up to your standard of unpredictability." Ryan shrugged playfully. "Just capture what you see. No rules." She smiled, focusing the lens on a field of sunflowers swaying in the breeze. For a brief moment, Claire felt entirely removed from her structured world, immersed in the beauty of the open road and the simplicity of the countryside. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, they found a small overlook and parked the truck. Sitting on the tailgate, they shared a thermos of coffee, watching the last rays of light fade behind the hills. "You know," Claire said softly, "I didn't expect to enjoy today as much as I have. I thought I'd be out of my element, uncomfortable the whole time." Ryan looked at her with a smile. "Sometimes the best experiences happen when you step out of your comfort zone. I think today proves that." Claire nodded, a genuine warmth spreading through her chest. "It does. Thank you, Ryan, for bringing me here, for showing me this." Ryan reached over and lightly tapped her shoulder. "No need to thank me. Just promise me one thing. Don't forget the feeling of this day. The freedom, the quiet, the little moments. Life's full of surprises, and this is just the beginning." Claire smiled, gazing at the rolling hills bathed in twilight. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of peace, a spark of excitement, and an undeniable connection to the man beside her. Their friendship had deepened, and though neither fully realized it yet, the road trip had laid the foundation for something far greater than either of them had imagined. Ryan stared at the empty pocket of his jacket in disbelief. He had checked it 3 times that morning, convinced he had carefully tucked away Claire's phone number after their long lunch at the small cafe. But as he had dropped his shirt off at the dry cleaner, he had no idea that the small slip of paper had fallen silently into the washing machine, destined to disappear among the fabric and soap suds. He muttered under his breath, shaking his head. Of course this would happen. Claire's number wasn't just a series of digits, it was a lifeline, a thread connecting him to someone who had become unexpectedly important. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, frustration mixing with determination. He refused to let a scrap of paper or a mundane accident stop him from finding her. "No way I'm letting this end here," he muttered, setting out on a mission across Austin. His first stop was the cafe where they had shared that afternoon together. Ryan stepped inside, glancing at the staff who were busy with lunchtime orders. He approached the counter, flashing a hopeful smile. "Hey, do you happen to remember a young woman who was here a few days ago? Blonde hair, stylish, very precise?" The barista paused, thinking. Maybe. She came in with a friend, I think? Yeah, someone came here talking about a road trip, right?" "That's her," Ryan said eagerly. "Do you happen to have her number or know how to contact her?" The barista shook her head apologetically. "Sorry, I don't. Didn't catch it, and we don't keep those kinds of things." Ryan nodded, trying not to let discouragement show, and thanked her before stepping back outside. The morning sun had climbed higher, and the Austin streets were alive with cars, cyclists, and the steady hum of city life. Next, Ryan retraced the steps they had taken during their adventure, visiting small shops, diners, and even the little antique store she had admired during the drive. Each stop brought a mixture of hope and disappointment. "Claire's been here? Maybe she came by?" he asked shopkeepers, who either shook their heads or shrugged apologetically. By midday, Ryan was beginning to feel the weight of desperation. He leaned against a lamppost, brushing dust from his jeans, and muttered aloud, "Okay, Ryan, think. What would get her attention? How do I make her notice me in this city of thousands?" That was when an idea struck him. He remembered her laughing at his impromptu singing during the wedding. Music, he thought. People always notice music. If he sang, really sang, he might attract her attention. Smiling at his own audacity, he took a deep breath, stepped into the middle of a busy intersection, and began to sing. The sound of Ryan's voice echoed off the buildings, drawing curious glances from passers-by and honking from impatient drivers. He sang loudly, not caring who watched or who stopped to stare. "Hey, Claire! Can anyone help me find Claire?" His voice rang with hope and urgency. Drivers slowed, pedestrians paused, and a small crowd began to form. Ryan's face glistened with sweat, but he didn't care. Every note, every call was a step closer to finding her.
For hours, he moved from street to street, asking shopkeepers, street vendors, and even a friendly traffic officer if anyone had seen a stylish woman fitting Claire's description. He described her carefully. The sharp eyes, the poised demeanor, the exact shade of her blonde hair, and even the way she carried herself. Each no he received fueled his determination rather than discouraging him. By late afternoon, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across the city streets. Ryan's energy began to wane, but he refused to quit. He wandered toward the intersection where they had parted ways after their lunch, hoping fate might intervene. As he approached, he noticed a familiar cluster of vehicles stuck in a traffic jam. Cars honked impatiently, engines idled, and drivers waved to each other in frustration. And then he saw her, Claire, sitting in a sleek black sedan, her hair catching the sunlight, eyes scanning the street ahead with a mixture of impatience and concern. Ryan felt a surge of relief so intense it nearly knocked the breath from his lungs. "Claire!" he shouted, waving his arms wildly. Her head snapped toward him, disbelief flashing across her face. "Ryan?" she called, her voice filled with both surprise and recognition. The crowd around them seemed to blur into the background, leaving only the two of them in that moment. Ryan bolted forward, weaving through the stalled cars, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've been looking everywhere for you," he exclaimed, finally reaching her window. "I lost your number and I couldn't stop thinking about you. I had to find you." Claire's initial shock softened into a small, incredulous smile. "You sang in the street? You went to all this trouble?" Her tone was a mixture of disbelief and admiration. "You didn't have to, you know?" Ryan grinned, though his chest heaved from the effort. "Yes, I did. No scrap of paper, no lost number is going to keep me from seeing you again. You matter too much." He paused, the intensity in his eyes meeting hers. "I had to try, Claire. I couldn't let this slip away." Her heart swelled with a mix of emotion, relief, amusement, and something warmer that she didn't fully understand yet. "I can't believe you. All of this," she said softly. "I thought Austin was a big city. I didn't think you'd actually find me." Ryan chuckled lightly, brushing a hand across the back of his neck. "Sometimes big cities have small-town surprises, and sometimes you just have to make your own luck." He looked around at the curious onlookers, then back at her. "But today, I got lucky, because I found you." Claire shook her head, laughing quietly despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "You're unbelievable," she murmured, "and maybe that's why I like you." Ryan's grin widened. "I'll take that as a win." He glanced at the traffic around them. "Tell you what, why don't you get out of this traffic jam and we'll celebrate your rescue with a proper lunch? No chaos, I promise. Well, maybe a little." Claire smiled, feeling a warmth she couldn't explain. "All right, Ryan," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Lead the way. But next time, keep your singing to a minimum." As they drove off together, the city unfolding around them, Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. He had lost a number, chased through Austin streets, and sung in front of curious strangers, but in the end, he had found what truly mattered. And Claire, feeling the thrill of being sought after so determinedly, realized that this chaotic man had carved a place in her heart she couldn't ignore. In that moment, amidst the lingering hum of traffic and the fading afternoon light, they both understood that some connections were too important to be lost, and sometimes love requires a little wild determination to find. The soft hum of the airplane cabin seemed almost unbearable to Ryan, each minute stretching longer than the last. He had boarded the flight to Miami with a mixture of determination and anxiety, hoping for a chance to see Claire again after weeks of searching and finally reuniting in Austin. The memory of her surprised face in the traffic jam replayed in his mind, warming him despite the tension he sensed looming ahead. But there was a weight he hadn't anticipated: Claire's engagement. He had learned about Ben from a mutual friend during a brief conversation in Austin. A childhood friend, devoted, dependable, someone who had been in her life for years. Ryan had nodded politely when the news was shared, though inside a storm had begun to brew. His hands clenched into fists as he stared out the airplane window at the clouds drifting past. He had found her once, but now there was another barrier between them. Claire sat across the aisle, her posture rigid, fingers nervously tracing the edge of her journal. Ryan watched her quietly, noting the delicate curve of her lips as they pressed together, the subtle tension in her shoulders. Something was off. She wasn't the relaxed, curious woman he had spent hours exploring the hill country with. "Claire," he said finally, leaning slightly forward, "are you okay?" Claire glanced up, startled by his sudden attention. She hesitated, then nodded, though her eyes betrayed the conflict within. "I'm fine, Ryan," she said softly, her voice careful. "Just thinking." Ryan's gaze softened. "About what?" he asked gently, his voice low enough that only she could hear. She swallowed, her fingers tightening on her journal. "About us. About me." She looked down, taking a deep breath before continuing. "Ryan, I like you, more than I expected. But," she paused, the word heavy with implication, "I'm engaged to Ben. I promised my parents and I promised him years ago. I can't just walk away from that."
Ryan felt the punch of her words, the surge of emotion so sharp it left him momentarily breathless. He nodded slowly, trying to steady his own feelings. "I understand," he said carefully, though the ache in his chest betrayed him. "I get it, Claire. Commitment, promises, those are important. But does it feel right? I mean, do you feel right?" Claire's eyes met his, and he saw the flicker of uncertainty, the struggle between duty and desire. I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I care about Ben. I've known him forever. But," she hesitated, biting her lip, "you've changed something in me, something I didn't realize was missing until now." Ryan leaned back, processing her words, a mixture of hope and frustration stirring inside him. "So, you care about me?" he said carefully, "but you feel obligated to Ben?" Claire nodded, tears pricking the corners of her eyes. "It's not that simple. I've made a promise. My family, they expect me to honor it. And Ben, he's been in my life for so long. I can't—" She stopped, shaking her head, as if to shake off the weight of her own confession. Ryan's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to tell her that obligations shouldn't outweigh the heart, but he held back. Instead, he chose honesty, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Claire, I'm not asking you to break a promise lightly, but I am asking, do you want to be with me?" She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "I do. I think I do," she admitted, "but it's complicated. I can't just disregard everything I've promised. I feel like I'm being pulled in two directions, and I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt you." Ryan reached across the aisle, gently placing his hand over hers. The contact was grounding, a small anchor amid the storm of uncertainty. "I don't want you to feel pressured, Claire. I needed to know, because I care about you, more than I've ever cared about anyone." She swallowed, her heart racing at the intensity in his eyes. "I care about you too, Ryan," she whispered, "but that doesn't make the situation any less tangled." He nodded slowly, squeezing her hand lightly. "Life isn't always simple, Claire, and love is rarely convenient, but I'd rather fight for you, even if it's hard, than walk away and never try." Her lips parted, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. The hum of the plane seemed louder in that suspended silence, passengers chatting and moving about, oblivious to the emotional tension in the aisle between them. Ryan leaned in slightly, voice softer now, almost a whisper. "I promise I'm not asking you to make a decision right now, but I need you to be honest with yourself. If your heart leans this way, toward me, then we can figure out the rest together." Claire exhaled slowly, her fingers still entwined with his. "It's just, Ben has been part of my life for so long. Walking away feels like betrayal, even though my heart—" She paused, tears threatening to spill. "My heart feels like it belongs somewhere else." Ryan nodded, understanding the depth of her conflict. "I get it, Claire, and I don't expect you to act on impulse. But know this, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, waiting, because what I feel for you, it's worth fighting for." The tension between them hung in the air, thick and heavy, but there was a quiet comfort in their connection, a fragile understanding that even amidst uncertainty, they were honest about their feelings. Claire let out a shaky laugh, a mix of relief and frustration. "You make it sound so simple, Ryan, but it's not." "I know it's not," Ryan said gently. "Love rarely is. But maybe it's worth navigating the complications. Maybe that's what makes it real." Claire's gaze softened, and for the first time, a small, genuine smile appeared. "You're unbelievable," she said quietly, shaking her head. "You're impossible. But I like that about you." Ryan smiled, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. "Then that's a start," he said, his tone playful yet earnest. "We'll figure the rest out together, one step at a time." As the plane began its descent into Miami, the sun dipping low over the horizon, the two sat side by side, hands still entwined, hearts beating with uncertainty but also possibility. The engagement to Ben loomed like a shadow, a reminder of duty and obligation. Yet the connection between Ryan and Claire pulsed with a truth they couldn't ignore. In that quiet, suspended moment, they both understood that life would test them, that choices would be hard and paths uncertain. But the bond they had formed, the spark that neither could deny, was strong enough to withstand the hesitation and fear. Claire let out a shaky laugh, a mix of relief and frustration. "You make it sound so simple, Ryan, but it's not." "I know it's not," Ryan said gently. "Love rarely is. But maybe it's worth navigating the complications. Maybe that's what makes it real." Claire's gaze softened, and for the first time, a small, genuine smile appeared. "You're unbelievable," she said quietly, shaking her head. "You're impossible, but I like that about you." Ryan smiled, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. "Then that's a start," he said, his tone playful yet earnest. "We'll figure the rest out together, one step at a time." As the plane began its descent into Miami, the sun dipping low over the horizon, the two sat side by side, hands still entwined, hearts beating with uncertainty but also possibility. The engagement to Ben loomed like a shadow, a reminder of duty and obligation. Yet the connection between Ryan and Claire pulsed with a truth they couldn't ignore. In that quiet, suspended moment, they both understood that life would test them, that choices would be hard and paths uncertain. But the bond they had formed, the spark that neither could deny, was strong enough to withstand the hesitation and fear. And as the plane touched down on Miami soil, the city sprawling before them, a tentative hope blossomed, an unspoken promise that despite the engagement dilemma, love might find a way. The Miami sun blazed brightly over the skyline, its golden rays reflecting off the shimmering waters of Biscayne Bay. Ryan stepped off the plane, sunglasses perched on his nose, a small duffel bag slung over his shoulder, and an unshakable determination in his eyes. He had followed Claire halfway across the country, knowing that the city's warmth and vibrancy might just be the perfect backdrop for the next chapter of their story. Every step he took was fueled by hope, tempered with a nervous energy he couldn't quite shake. Claire was already there, waiting at the airport's arrivals area, glancing around impatiently. She had been cautious about traveling alone, but she couldn't deny a part of her was secretly thrilled that Ryan had chosen to follow her. When she saw him, her chest tightened, a mixture of surprise, delight, and that familiar uncertainty stirring within her. "Ryan," she murmured, her voice carrying both awe and exasperation. He grinned, striding toward her. "Claire, missed me?" His tone was playful, teasing, but his eyes held a depth of sincerity that made her heart skip. Claire shook her head, exhaling a soft laugh. "You really didn't have to follow me," she said, though her lips curved in a reluctant smile. "This is crazy and bold, and somehow exactly what I didn't know I needed." Ryan shrugged, hands stuffed casually in his pockets. "Crazy and bold are kind of my specialties. But seriously, I didn't want to risk losing the chance to spend a little time with you. Even if it's just a few days, Claire, I want to see you, to really know you." Her eyes softened at his words, though the shadow of her engagement still lingered. I don't know if this is a good idea," she admitted, her voice quiet. "You know about Ben. I promised him, promised my parents. It's not simple." Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I know, and I'm not asking you to make decisions now. I want these moments with you, to show you how much I care, to see you smile without the weight of everything else on your shoulders." For a long moment, Claire just stared at him, the bustling airport fading into background noise. Then, reluctantly, she nodded. "All right," she said softly, "but you have to promise me something. No pressure, no drama, just time." Ryan's grin widened, relief evident. "Deal," he said, and just like that, the tension between them eased, replaced by a fragile sense of freedom. Their first morning in Miami began with a melody. Ryan, never one for subtlety, had insisted on waking Claire with a song, strumming a small guitar he had brought along in his duffel bag. Claire groaned at first, pulling the covers over her head, but when the first few notes floated through the room, soft and playful, she couldn't help but laugh. "Ryan," she exclaimed, finally sitting up, hair tousled from sleep. "You can't just wake people with songs. It's unfair." "Unfair?" he teased, leaning against the doorframe. "Claire, I call it romantic. Plus, I have the perfect voice for mornings like this." He winked, plucking another cheerful chord. Claire shook her head, laughing, though a smile tugged at her lips. "I think I might like it," she admitted, softening, "but only a little." Ryan grinned, closing the distance between them. "I'll take what I can get," he said. "And don't worry, at night I'll lull you to sleep. Fair trade." Over the next few hours, the two explored the city with the energy of people who had discovered a shared secret. They wandered along Ocean Drive, the turquoise water shimmering in the morning sun, stopping to watch street performers and sample fresh fruit from a bustling outdoor market. Ryan was endlessly animated, pointing out little quirks in the city, making Claire laugh at his playful commentary. "You see that guy over there?" Ryan said, nodding toward a street performer juggling flaming batons. "That's dedication, and slightly terrifying. Kinda like me in a small way." Claire chuckled, her previous tension easing further. "Terrifying? I don't know. I think you're more entertaining than terrifying." She caught his gaze, a warmth in her eyes that made her heart tighten. They stopped at a small cafe tucked into a quiet side street, the aroma of espresso and baked pastries mingling with the salty sea breeze. Sitting across from each other, they shared a plate of pastelitos, laughing at the mess they inevitably made. "You have a strange talent," Claire said, smearing a bit of powdered sugar on her lip, "making chaos charming." Ryan smiled, brushing it off casually. "It's a gift," he said, "but I promise it's all part of the experience. You'll get used to it." By midday, a delayed connecting flight forced them to remain in Miami longer than expected. Ryan, ever the optimist, saw it as a blessing rather than an inconvenience. "More time with you," he said with a grin. "Think of it as an extended adventure." Claire shook her head, though her lips curved upward. "You're impossible, but I don't hate the idea." They spent the hours walking along the beach, the sand warm beneath their feet, the waves lapping gently at the shore. Ryan shared stories of his trucking company, the people who had helped him build it from scratch, and the challenges he had faced along the way. Claire, in turn, told him about the cutthroat world of fashion, the pressure of family expectations, and the small joys she found in creating beauty from fabric and thread. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, they sat side by side on a low wall overlooking the water. The conversation dwindled, replaced by a comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when two people feel understood and connected. Ryan glanced at Claire, the fading light catching the gold in her hair. "You know," he said softly, "I think I could get used to this. To us. Even with everything else happening, there's something about this. About you." Claire turned to him, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I feel the same, Ryan," she admitted. "It's hard to explain. I didn't expect any of this when I came here, but being with you, even for a little while, feels right." Ryan reached over, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Right," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's all that matters. Right now, this moment, it's ours, and I don't want to waste it." As the night deepened, Ryan kept his promise. He strummed his guitar gently beside her hotel bed, singing soft, comforting songs until Claire's eyes grew heavy and sleep claimed her. Watching her drift into slumber, he felt a quiet sense of triumph, not over the city, the travel, or even fate, but over the fear of letting love slip away. For her part, Claire lay awake for a few moments, the soft melodies filling the room, her heart full of emotion she couldn't yet name. She thought of Ben, of promises and obligations, but alongside that, there was Ryan, his determination, his warmth, and the ease with which he made her laugh. She realized with a mixture of excitement and trepidation that this bond was growing into something she could no longer ignore. By the time they finally turned in for the night, the city outside quieted into a gentle hum, the distant lights reflecting off the ocean. In Miami, under the glow of the moon and the pulse of the waves, Ryan and Claire's connection deepened. With every laugh, every shared glance, every melody sung, and every secret confided, they were building something lasting, something that neither time, distance, nor obligations could easily erase. And in the quiet of that hotel room, both of them silently acknowledged that this chapter, the stolen hours, the playful teasing, the shared adventures, was not just a fleeting moment, but the foundation of a love that neither could deny. The drive back to Austin was quiet, the kind of quiet that carried both reflection and anticipation. Claire sat beside Ryan, her hands folded neatly in her lap, staring out the window as the Texas countryside unfolded in a patchwork of fields, farmhouses, and winding roads. For the first time in weeks, she felt a calm certainty amid the whirlwind of emotions she had experienced since Miami. Her thoughts kept returning to Ryan, his laughter, his determination, the way he had always insisted on finding her, no matter what obstacles stood in their way. Finally, she turned toward him, her eyes shining with a mixture of nervousness and resolve. "Ryan," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly, I think I've realized something." Ryan glanced at her, curiosity and hope flickering across his face. "Yeah?" he said, keeping his tone light, though his heart beat faster. "What's that?" Claire took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm in love with you," she confessed, the words spilling out in a rush of relief and certainty. "I've been trying to ignore it, to convince myself it's complicated, but it's not. I love you, Ryan. I don't care about Ben anymore, or the past. It's you. It's always been you." Ryan's chest swelled with emotion, and a wide grin spread across his face. "Claire," he whispered, reaching over to take her hand in his. The warmth of her fingers in his felt like a promise fulfilled. "You don't know how long I've been waiting to hear you say that." She smiled, her own tears welling in her eyes. "I was afraid of making mistakes, afraid of hurting anyone. But I can't live in fear anymore, not when it comes to us." Ryan squeezed her hand, leaning closer so their foreheads almost touched. "Then we won't," he said gently. "We'll figure everything out together. No fears, no doubts. Just us." Over the next few days, Claire gathered the courage to speak with her parents. Their initial reaction was predictably hesitant. Her father frowned, brows knitted. "Claire, Ryan, I know you like him, but he's different from what we expected. You've known Ben for years. Why would you?" Claire cut him off, her voice firm but respectful. "Dad, I respect everything Ben has meant to me, and I respect you. But Ryan makes me happy in a way I've never known. I've thought about this for weeks. I know it's sudden, but my heart isn't wrong. I need you to trust me on this." Her mother, softening at the earnestness in her daughter's eyes, placed a hand over her shoulder. "Claire, we just want what's best for you. You're certain?" "I am," Claire said firmly, her voice steady. "I love him, and I want to spend my life with him." After long discussions and some hesitation, her parents gave their reluctant blessing. "All right," her father said finally, sighing. "If your heart is truly in it, we will support you. But promise me you'll be careful. Love is wonderful, but life isn't always easy." Claire hugged them tightly, relief washing over her. "I promise. Thank you." The wedding was small, intimate, and heartfelt. Austin's early spring weather provided the perfect backdrop, with soft sunlight filtering through budding trees. Ryan, in a crisp but relaxed suit, watched Claire walk down the aisle, her elegance and poise taking his breath away. For a moment, the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of them, every other sound fading into the background. When Claire reached him, she smiled, eyes glistening with emotion. "Hi," she whispered, almost shyly. Ryan grinned, taking her hands in his. "Hi," he replied softly. "You look perfect." They exchanged vows with sincerity and warmth, speaking promises that went beyond words, promises of laughter, adventure, support, and unwavering love. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the world erupted into cheers and applause, but Ryan and Claire remained in their bubble of joy, hearts racing, fingers intertwined, souls aligned. After the ceremony, they moved into Ryan's Austin home, a place that had always been messy, chaotic, and full of life. Claire walked through the rooms with a mix of curiosity and amusement, noticing the scattered paperwork, the mismatched furniture, and the cluttered kitchen. "I suppose I should have expected this," she said, a playful smile tugging at her lips. "It's you." Ryan laughed, pulling her close. "It's home, and now it's our home. A little messy, a little chaotic, but full of love. That's what matters." That night, after the laughter had faded and the first day of marriage came to a close, Ryan found himself alone in the study. From a drawer, he pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box, an heirloom passed down through generations in his family. Inside was a delicate pendant, its craftsmanship exquisite, a symbol of protection and enduring love. Ryan held it gently, whispering to it as if it could hear him. "I promise I'll protect her. No matter what happens, no matter where life takes us, she will be safe. And if I'm ever away, this will be a reminder that I love her, that I'm always with her in spirit." The weight of the heirloom felt profound in his hands, a tangible representation of the devotion he had felt for Claire since the moment they met. He closed his eyes, imagining her smiling, her hand in his, her laughter echoing through the home. "This is for you, Claire," he whispered softly, "always." Claire, meanwhile, was settling into their shared bedroom, unpacking a few personal items and arranging them with her characteristic precision. She paused to look out the window at the city lights twinkling in the distance, her thoughts drifting to Ryan. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and love, knowing that she had chosen the right person, that her heart had led her true. When Ryan finally returned to the bedroom, the heirloom safely tucked away, he found Claire sitting on the edge of the bed, her hands resting in her lap, a content smile gracing her lips. "You're quiet," she said, noticing the small smile tugging at his face. "Just thinking," he replied softly, moving to sit beside her. "About us, about everything, and how lucky I am to have you here." Claire leaned her head on his shoulder, her voice soft. "I feel the same. It's comforting, knowing we're together no matter what comes next." Ryan wrapped an arm around her, feeling the rhythm of her breathing sync with his. "Exactly," he said. "We'll face everything together, and I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe and happy." As they sat there, the quiet hum of the city below their window, both Ryan and Claire understood the depth of their bond. They had navigated chaos, uncertainty, and fear, and yet here they were, married, united, and ready to face the world together. The heirloom in Ryan's study was more than a symbol. It was a promise, a declaration of the enduring love and protection he vowed to give Claire, no matter the trials ahead. And in that peaceful, intimate moment, surrounded by the comfort of their shared home, both knew that this was only the beginning. Love, they realized, was not simply about grand gestures or fleeting moments of passion. It was about commitment, devotion, and the quiet assurance that in each other they had found a home. The hum of the bowling alley was lively, a mixture of clattering pins, laughter, and the occasional shouts of excitement as balls rolled down the lanes. The smell of buttery popcorn and the faint tang of shoe polish filled the air, creating that unmistakable aroma of a place where friends gathered to unwind. Emma sat on one of the tall bar stools, her hands wrapped around a soda cup, eyes wide as Michael and their friends recounted the story of Ryan and Claire. The narrative, full of adventure, heartache, and love, had captured her completely. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she listened, the romantic tale igniting emotions she had never expected. I can't believe people like that exist," she whispered softly, voice trembling. "I always thought stories like that were only in novels. I mean, the way he searched for her in Austin, singing in the streets, retracing his steps, it's incredible." Michael smiled, squeezing her hand gently. See, love like that isn't just in books, Emma. Sometimes it's messy, inconvenient, and completely irrational, but it's real. Ryan and Claire found each other, and they didn't let anything stop them. Emma dabbed at her tears with a napkin, her lips quivering. It's just so touching. I can't imagine having someone go to such lengths for me. I feel like I've been so cynical about love all this time. One of their friends, laughing softly, chimed in. Well, maybe you just needed a story like this to remind you what it can be. Intense, dramatic, and unforgettable. Just then, the familiar sound of the front door opening drew their attention. Jason walked in first, followed closely by Lisa, both carrying the easy confidence of people who were comfortable in the lively atmosphere of the bowling alley. Jason's eyes sparkled as he approached the group, his smile broad and genuine. "Hey everyone, sorry we're late. Traffic was brutal," he said, shrugging as he set down his coat. Lisa leaned in, giving Emma a friendly smile. "We've got a bit of a special reason for being here today," she said, her voice tinged with excitement. "And no, it's not just to beat you all at bowling." Emma blinked, curiosity and excitement sparking in her heart. "Special reason? What do you mean?" Jason grinned, his eyes twinkling as he leaned closer. "Well, Emma, it's Ryan and Claire's first wedding anniversary today." Emma's mouth fell open, a gasp escaping her lips. "Wait, what?" she exclaimed, her hands flying to cover her mouth in disbelief. "You mean the couple you've been telling me about all this time? They're married?" Lisa laughed softly, nodding. "Yes, and we thought it would be perfect to celebrate their special day with a little surprise. You've all heard the story, right? The entire journey, from the first chaotic meeting to the road trip, the engagement dilemma, and finally their wedding. Today, we get to see them and maybe even surprise them a little." Emma's eyes sparkled through her tears, her voice choked with excitement. "This is amazing! I can't believe I'm going to meet them. After hearing all of that, I feel like I've been waiting for this moment too." Michael chuckled, his arm around her shoulders. "You've been swept off your feet without even realizing it. Just imagine how it'll feel when you finally see them in person." Jason leaned back, a conspiratorial grin on his face. "And just so you know, we've got a few little plans for them. Let's just say they won't see it coming. After everything they've been through, they deserve a celebration to remember." Emma's eyes glimmered with anticipation, her previous skepticism of love washed away in the warmth of the story and the excitement of the upcoming reunion. "I can't wait," she said softly. "I can't wait to see the two of them, to see them happy together. It feels like a fairy tale." Lisa nodded, smiling at her enthusiasm. "Exactly, and it's not just a fairy tale, it's real. They've had their challenges, sure. Ryan's trucking company, Claire's career, all the obstacles life threw at them. But here they are, a year later, still together, still in love. That's worth celebrating." Emma looked around at the friends gathered, the laughter and chatter filling the air, and felt a sense of warmth spread through her. "You know," she said, her voice soft but earnest, "hearing this story, it makes me believe that love like that is possible. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And that's beautiful." Michael leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I'm glad, Emma. That's exactly why we wanted to share it. Love isn't always neat or convenient, but when it's real, it's worth everything. And today, you get to see the proof." At that moment, the sound of laughter and applause came from the other side of the bowling alley. Emma's eyes widened as she spotted Ryan and Claire entering together, both dressed casually but radiating the easy comfort of a couple who had truly found each other. Ryan's arm rested around Claire's shoulders and her hand was tucked in his, their smiles bright and genuine. "Oh my gosh," Emma whispered, a hand flying to her mouth again. It's them. They're really here." Claire's eyes lit up when she spotted the group, recognition and warmth flooding her face. "Hi everyone," she called out, her voice filled with joy. Ryan, following her gaze, gave a sheepish grin and a slight wave. "Hey, we weren't expecting this," he admitted, his tone amused. Jason stepped forward, clapping his hands together. "Surprise!" he exclaimed. "Happy first anniversary, you two!" The couple looked around, stunned and delighted by the gathering. Claire laughed, covering her mouth with her hand, her eyes sparkling. "You all did this for us?" Lisa grinned. "Of course. You've had quite the story, and we thought the best way to celebrate it was with a little surprise party. You've earned it." Ryan shook his head, a mix of disbelief and gratitude on his face. "I don't even know what to say," he said, looking at Claire, and then the friends gathered. This is amazing. Thank you." Claire stepped closer to Ryan, resting her hand on his arm. "It's perfect," she said softly, leaning in to whisper to him. "Just perfect." Emma, wiping a tear from her cheek, looked at Michael with a shaky laugh. "I can't believe I'm witnessing this. After hearing everything, seeing them together, happy, alive with love, it's overwhelming." Michael smiled, squeezing her hand. "And that's just the start. Today is a celebration of them, yes, but it's also a reminder that real love, messy, chaotic, and sometimes improbable, is possible. And today, you see it in action." Ryan and Claire, now fully surrounded by friends, laughter, and the warmth of the bowling alley, looked at each other and shared a quiet, knowing smile. They had faced challenges, heartache, and uncertainty, yet here they were, a year into marriage, still standing strong, still deeply in love. And now, with friends and loved ones around them, they were reminded that their journey, chaotic and beautiful as it had been, was worth every moment. Emma watched them, her heart full. "I'll never forget this," she whispered. "Seeing love like that, it's inspiring." Michael leaned down, resting his chin on her shoulder. "And who knows, maybe it'll inspire a few love stories of your own someday," he said gently. Emma smiled, the tears still glistening in her eyes, but now mingled with joy. "Maybe it will," she murmured, as Ryan and Claire embraced, laughter and cheers echoing around them. The morning sun filtered weakly through the blinds of Ryan and Claire's Austin home, but there was little warmth in the light. The air in the house felt heavy, thick with unspoken tension and the weight of worries that had begun to erode the easy comfort they once shared. Ryan sat at the kitchen table, hands buried in his hair, the stack of unpaid bills in front of him growing taller by the day. The once cheerful home now seemed smaller, more confining, filled with anxiety instead of laughter. Claire approached cautiously, holding a mug of coffee. "Ryan," she said softly, setting it down in front of him, "you didn't sleep well again, did you?" He shook his head without looking up, his voice tight. "Not a wink. I keep going over the numbers, Claire, and it doesn't add up. The company is failing, and I can't see a way out." He finally lifted his gaze, eyes red-rimmed, dark with worry. "I feel like I'm drowning, and no matter what I do, I can't catch my breath." Claire knelt beside him, taking his hand gently in hers. "We'll figure it out together," she said, though her voice betrayed the uncertainty she felt. "You're not alone in this. We can find a way through." Ryan managed a hollow laugh, shaking his head. "I don't know if it's that simple, Claire. This isn't just numbers on paper. My whole company, the jobs of my employees, everything I've built from the ground up, it's slipping through my fingers. And now," he swallowed hard, "now I'm embarrassed. I had to go to the bank yesterday, and the officer practically looked down on me, like I was some failure. I can't stop thinking about it." Claire squeezed his hand, trying to anchor him. "Ryan, one bad encounter doesn't define you. You've built a business from nothing. You've done amazing things, and I know you'll find a way through this. You always do." He ran a hand across his face, the stress evident in every line of his expression. "I feel like I've let everyone down. My employees, my clients, even us. I promised we'd be secure, and now I can barely pay the bills, let alone think about anything else."
Claire's own eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them show too much. "We'll get through this, Ryan," she whispered. "We're a team, remember? We promised to face everything together. Don't let this temporary failure take away what we have." Ryan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. "I know, Claire. I know you're right. But it doesn't make it any easier. The humiliation, the weight, I can't stop thinking about what people are saying behind my back. I've never felt so powerless." The morning dragged on in heavy silence. Claire busied herself with small tasks around the kitchen, occasionally glancing at Ryan as he buried himself in paperwork, calculating bills, invoices, and statements. Each figure seemed to press down on him like a physical weight, and his shoulders slumped under the invisible burden. She wished she could take it all away, take the weight onto herself, but she knew she could only stand beside him, offering support and encouragement. Finally, Ryan looked up, eyes tired and dark. "I don't even recognize this version of myself," he admitted quietly. "I'm not the easygoing, laid-back guy I used to be. I can't sleep, I snap at everyone, and I feel like I'm failing at everything I touch." Claire moved closer, placing a hand gently on his cheek. "Ryan, you're still you," she said firmly. "You're still the man I fell in love with. This is just a rough patch. Life doesn't hand out victories without challenges. You're strong, and I believe in you." He swallowed, tears threatening to fall. "But what if I can't fix it? What if the company is gone forever? What if I've ruined everything for us?" Claire shook her head, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "You haven't ruined anything. We're still here, together. That's what matters. Money can be recovered. Businesses can be rebuilt. But this," she said, gesturing to the two of them, "this love, this partnership, it's unbreakable if we don't let it be." Ryan closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath. "I wish I could be as calm as you, Claire. I wish I could just trust that things will work out like you do." She leaned in, pressing her forehead to his. "It's not always easy. I have my doubts too. But when we face them together, they're lighter, aren't they?" He opened his eyes, meeting hers, and saw the unwavering support, the steadfast love that had carried them through their courtship and marriage so far. A flicker of hope sparked in his chest, small but persistent. "Yeah," he admitted softly, "I guess they are, lighter with you." Later that day, Ryan found himself staring at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, the weight of responsibility etched into his face. The humiliation of the bank encounter still burned in his mind, but a quiet determination began to grow. He couldn't let his pride or fear dictate the next steps. He had to find a solution, not just for the company, but for Claire, for the life they had begun to build together. Claire knocked lightly on the door. "Ryan, are you okay?" she asked, her voice tender, almost hesitant. He turned, managing a small, wry smile. "I'll be okay. I have to be, for both of us." He took a deep breath, shoulders straightening. "We'll tackle this together, Claire, no matter how hard it gets." She smiled, her own resolve strengthening. "I'll be right here, every step of the way." That evening, they sat side by side on the couch, the room dimly lit by a single lamp. The house felt quiet, almost peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling in Ryan's mind. Claire leaned against him, her hand resting on his arm, offering silent reassurance. "I don't like seeing you like this," she said softly. "You're always the one who protects me, who makes everything seem manageable. Now it's my turn to help you." Ryan pressed a kiss to her temple, drawing comfort from her closeness. "I know, and I appreciate it more than I can say. It's just, sometimes it feels like the walls are closing in, but having you here, it makes them feel a little further away." They sat in silence for a while, letting the presence of one another soothe the frayed edges of their nerves.
Outside, the Austin night stretched quietly, the world continuing its rhythm, oblivious to the trials unfolding behind the closed doors of their home. Despite the challenges and humiliation, Ryan and Claire found strength in each other. Their love had always been tested, first by circumstance, then by distance, and now by financial strain. And though the pressure threatened to crush their spirits, they knew that as long as they faced it together, there was hope. Ryan finally whispered, almost to himself, "We'll get through this, Claire. Somehow, we'll find a way." Claire lifted her head, smiling through her own worry. "Yes, we will, because we have each other, and that's stronger than any problem, any bank officer, or any debt." He pulled her into a tight embrace, holding on as if grounding himself, drawing courage from her presence. In that quiet living room, with bills stacked on the table and the weight of the world pressing in, they clung to one certainty. Love alone wouldn't solve their problems, but it gave them the strength to face them together. The soft glow of string lights filled Ryan and Claire's backyard as friends and family gathered for a small celebration, a brief attempt to lift the weight of stress that had hung over their marriage. Laughter and music floated through the air, a stark contrast to the tension simmering just beneath the surface between Ryan and Claire. Both tried to put on a cheerful facade, smiling at acquaintances and engaging in polite conversation, but their eyes often met with unspoken worries reflecting the strain of the past months. Claire lingered near the refreshment table, nervously twisting the napkin in her hands. She had made a difficult decision, one she hoped would alleviate some of the pressure Ryan was feeling, but the thought of his reaction filled her with unease. She had borrowed a substantial sum from Ben, her former fiancé, knowing it was ethically questionable, but convinced it was the only way to prevent Ryan from sinking further into despair. Michael approached, noticing her anxiety. "Claire, are you okay?" he asked softly, concern etched on his face. She forced a smile, though it faltered. "I'm fine, Michael," she said, her voice tight. "Just a lot on my mind, that's all." Ryan, meanwhile, circulated among the guests, shaking hands, laughing at jokes, trying to appear normal despite the gnawing frustration in his chest. His mind kept drifting back to the financial collapse of his company, the mounting bills, and the growing feeling that no matter what he did, he was failing the woman he loved. He caught sight of Claire and instinctively moved toward her, hoping her presence might anchor him for just a moment. "Claire," he said, slipping his arm around her waist, "you're supposed to be enjoying yourself tonight. Come on, smile for me." She smiled weakly, leaning against him. "I am, Ryan," she murmured, though her heart pounded with guilt. The weight of the secret she carried pressed heavily on her chest, a constant reminder of her choice to act alone. She hoped he wouldn't find out, not tonight at least. The evening continued, with laughter and clinking glasses masking the tension. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Ryan's eyes fell on an envelope lying near the edge of the table, a bank-stamped letter with Claire's name on it. Curiosity piqued, he picked it up, and as he read, his expression shifted from curiosity to disbelief, then to burning anger. "Claire!" he exclaimed, his voice cutting sharply through the jovial atmosphere. Heads turned and laughter abruptly died in the silence. Claire froze, her heart sinking as Ryan held the letter up like evidence. "What is this?" Claire's eyes widened in panic. "Ryan, I can explain," she began, stepping toward him, but he held up a hand, silencing her before she could speak further. "This is from Ben," Ryan said, his voice shaking with rage. "You borrowed money behind my back? You went to him while I was drowning?" His fingers clenched around the envelope, crumpling it slightly. "Do you have any idea how this looks? How it feels? I've been trying to handle everything myself, and you undermined me?" Claire's voice cracked, filled with desperation. "I didn't want you to feel worse than you already do. I was trying to help. I thought I was doing the right thing, Ryan. Please, you have to believe me." But Ryan's anger boiled over, his frustration and humiliation consuming him. "Believe you? "Claire, do you realize how reckless this is? How humiliating? I can't even—" He slammed the envelope down on the table, sending a drink spilling. Guests flinched, the music stuttering as he gestured wildly. "I can't handle this. Every step we take forward, it feels like you're tearing it apart." Tears streamed down Claire's face as she backed away, shaken by the intensity of his reaction. "Ryan, please, I only wanted to help. I didn't want to hurt you." "You've hurt me more than you know," he shouted, his voice echoing through the yard. "I can't trust you if you keep hiding things from me, hiding your actions, thinking you know what's best while I'm standing here, failing, trying to hold us together." Guests murmured among themselves, uncertain whether to intervene, while the celebratory atmosphere collapsed into a tense silence. Claire's hands trembled as she realized the depth of Ryan's hurt, and a cold, sinking feeling took hold. She had acted out of love, yet all she had done was amplify the distance between them. Ryan turned abruptly, storming toward the house, leaving Claire standing in the middle of the yard, trembling and stunned. She quickly grabbed her coat, the need to escape overwhelming her. She felt as though the room was closing in, the warmth of the party replaced by a crushing weight of despair and regret. Without another word, she slipped out the back gate, her feet carrying her swiftly down the familiar streets toward the safety of her parents' home. Meanwhile, Ryan sat heavily on the edge of the porch, head in his hands, the anger and guilt warring inside him. He knew he had overreacted, that Claire had only tried to help, but the betrayal, or at least the perception of it, cut deep. He felt powerless, trapped between love and frustration, unable to reconcile the two. Claire arrived at her parents' house moments later, shivering from more than the cool evening air. She barely waited for an answer when she rang the bell, and her mother opened the door, concern immediately filling her eyes. "Claire, what's wrong? Are you okay?" her mother asked, wrapping her in a tight embrace. I don't know," Claire whispered, voice trembling. "It's Ryan. We had an argument. He's furious with me. I didn't mean to hurt him, but I didn't know what else to do." Her father appeared behind her mother, frowning. "What happened?" he asked gently. Claire shook her head, tears falling freely. "It's complicated. I only tried to help him with the bills, with everything, and I can't explain it properly." Her parents exchanged a worried glance, then ushered her inside, closing the door against the night and the harsh realities she had fled. Claire sank into the living room couch, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her body. The secret she had hoped would save Ryan had only driven a wedge between them, leaving her feeling isolated, helpless, and broken. Back in Austin, Ryan stood at the edge of the empty backyard, staring at the dark sky above, the party long since dispersed. He knew he needed to apologize, to find a way to bridge the chasm that had opened between them, but pride and exhaustion made it difficult. For now, all he could do was feel the emptiness of her absence and the heavy weight of his own anger and hurt. Inside her parents' home, Claire sat quietly, thinking about Ryan, the anger she had seen in his eyes, the destruction of their celebration, and the fear of losing him. She knew she had acted out of love, but love alone didn't guarantee understanding or forgiveness. She whispered his name into the silence, hoping somehow he would hear it. "I only wanted to help," she murmured, voice breaking. "I love you, Ryan. Please, please understand someday." The night stretched on, heavy with heartbreak, secrets, and the unspoken truths that had fractured their first real confrontation as a married couple. And as Claire curled into herself on the couch and Ryan stared into the darkness outside, both understood one undeniable fact: love, no matter how deep, could not always shield them from mistakes, misunderstandings, or the consequences of well-intentioned actions. The streets of Austin were quiet that evening, the hum of city life softened by the fading light of the setting sun. Ryan's heart pounded as he drove, his grip tight on the steering wheel, mind racing with thoughts of Claire. He couldn't let this end like it had the night before, not after everything they had shared, the road trips, the laughter, the countless small moments that had built the foundation of their love. Tonight, he would make things right. He arrived at her parents' house, parking a little way down the street, and took a deep breath. The weight of his pride and frustration pressed against his chest, but he pushed it aside, replacing it with determination. "I have to fix this," he murmured to himself. "She has to know how much she means to me." Claire answered the door almost immediately, her expression guarded, eyes wary as she took in Ryan's anxious stance. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" she asked softly, voice steady despite the turmoil she felt inside. "I couldn't wait any longer," he said, stepping forward, hands open in a gesture of sincerity. "I need to talk to you, Claire. Please, just hear me out." Claire folded her arms, leaning against the doorframe, a mixture of hurt and hesitation in her eyes. "Ryan, I don't know if this is a good idea," she said quietly. "After last night, after everything that happened, I'm not sure we can just go back to how things were." He shook his head, his eyes earnest. "I know I lost my temper, and I know I hurt you, but I need you to understand, it wasn't because I don't trust you or love you. It's because I love you too much to sit back and watch us fall apart without trying to fix it." Claire's gaze softened, but only slightly. "Ryan, I love you too. That's why I did what I did. I wanted to protect us, even if it meant keeping a secret. But your anger, it frightened me. I don't know if I can face that again." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I understand. I was furious, and I said things I shouldn't have, but I can't lose you over this. Claire, we've faced challenges before, and we've always come out stronger. This isn't the end, not unless you let it be." Claire shook her head, stepping back slightly. "I don't know, Ryan. Austin, staying here feels impossible without you. And yet, I can't just ignore everything that happened either. I'm torn." Her voice broke, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't stay here if we can't be together, but leaving feels just as impossible." Ryan reached out, gently taking her hands in his. "Claire, I'm not going to let you go. Not now, not ever. I don't care if it's tough, if we argue, if life keeps throwing obstacles at us. I love you, and I want to fix this, no matter how long it takes." She looked down at their intertwined hands, the warmth and reassurance in his touch pulling at her heart. Yet the fear of repeating past mistakes held her back. "I want to believe you," she whispered. "I want to trust that we can get through this, but I need time to think. I need to know that we can face the future together without tearing each other apart." Ryan nodded, squeezing her hands gently. "I'll give you the time you need, Claire, but know this, I'll wait. I'll fight for us. And if you decide you can't stay in Austin without me, I'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. You don't have to decide tonight." Claire's lips trembled as she struggled to maintain her composure. "Ryan, it's not just about now. It's about everything. The money, the arguments, the stress. It's all too much sometimes. How do we guarantee it won't happen again?" He took a deep breath, his voice steady, filled with conviction. "We can't guarantee anything, Claire. Life will always throw challenges at us. But we can guarantee this, that we'll face them together. That I will never stop loving you, never stop trying. And that whatever happens, I'll always be here for you." Her eyes searched his, looking for the honesty she knew had always been there. Slowly, she nodded, a glimmer of hope breaking through her uncertainty. "I believe you, Ryan. I do. I can't stay here tonight. I need to think. I need space to make the right choice for us." He nodded, understanding, though the ache in his chest was undeniable. "I get it, Claire, and I'll respect that. But wherever you go, know this. I'm coming after you. I'm not giving up on us. Not now, not ever." She gave a small, reluctant smile, her hands lingering in his a moment longer. Thank you for understanding, for not giving up on me. Ryan leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Always, he whispered, I'll always come back to you. As Claire closed the door, Ryan stepped back, breathing deeply to steady himself. He knew she was conflicted, torn between leaving and staying, between fear and love. But he also knew that love like theirs was worth the fight. He would give her space, yes, but he would never stop trying to bridge the gap that had opened between them. The streets outside felt emptier than usual, the distant sounds of the city fading into the background. Ryan sat in his car for a long moment, gripping the steering wheel, replaying their conversation in his mind. He knew Claire needed time to process, to reconcile her fears with her feelings, but he also knew that every second apart only strengthened his resolve. Finally, he started the engine, determination lighting his features. "I'll find a way, Claire," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "I won't let distance, fear, or mistakes come between us. You're my life, and I'll do whatever it takes to bring you back." Meanwhile, Claire sat by her bedroom window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. She felt torn, every instinct urging her to stay with Ryan, to trust in their love, while the memory of the argument and the sense of betrayal made her hesitate. She knew she couldn't remain in Austin feeling this fractured, not if it meant living in constant tension and uncertainty. The only choice she could make, for her heart and their future, was to leave, even temporarily, to gain clarity. She whispered his name into the night, a mix of longing and pain in her voice. "Ryan, I can't stay here without you, but I can't stay with this fear either. I need to know we can truly be us again." Ryan, still driving through the quiet streets, imagined her words, the soft weight of her heart echoing in his mind. He knew her decision to leave wasn't rejection, it was reflection, a test of whether their love could withstand adversity. And he vowed silently, with every fiber of his being, that he would meet her halfway, fight for her, and ensure that no distance, physical or emotional, could ever sever the bond they had built. In that fragile, tense moment, separated by streets and walls, both Claire and Ryan understood one undeniable truth. Love wasn't easy. It demanded courage, patience, and the willingness to face one's fears. And as the night stretched on, both silently promised that this struggle would not be the end of their story. It would be the beginning of a deeper understanding, a test they would face together, no matter the obstacles. The roar of Ryan's truck engine filled the early morning air as he sped through the streets of Austin, heart pounding in sync with the rapid rhythm of the tires against the asphalt. His mind raced faster than the vehicle, replaying the argument, Claire's tear-streaked face, and the helpless feeling of watching her walk away. Every red light, every honking horn only intensified the urgency. He had to reach her before she boarded that plane, before distance made what was already fragile feel irreparable. "Claire, wait," he muttered under his breath, gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Please, just hear me out." Minutes felt like hours as he weaved through traffic, taking every shortcut he could recall from memory. The city blurred past him, buildings and signs merging into streaks of color. His thoughts were a whirlwind of guilt, regret, and hope. He knew he had made mistakes, that his temper and pride had pushed Claire to the brink of leaving, but he also knew one truth above all else: he couldn't let her go. Not now, not ever. When he finally arrived at the airport, he practically skidded into the parking lot, ignoring the usual rules of caution. Sprinting through the terminal, he scanned the crowd desperately, heart leaping every time he caught a glimpse of someone who might be her. His eyes finally landed on her, standing by the check-in counter, suitcase at her side, a mixture of resolve and uncertainty in her posture. "Claire!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the low hum of the airport. Several travelers turned, startled by the intensity in his tone. She froze, turning slowly, her eyes widening as she met his gaze. "Ryan," she whispered, a mix of relief and anxiety flooding her features. He broke into a run, closing the distance between them in seconds. "Please, don't go yet. Just listen to me," he pleaded, grabbing her hands gently. "I know I've made mistakes. I've let anger and frustration get in the way, and I've hurt you more than I ever intended. But I need you to know, I want to change, for us." Claire's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she searched his face, looking for the truth beneath the desperation. "Ryan, I don't know if it's possible," she said softly, voice shaking. "We've been through so much, and it feels like every step forward is followed by 2 steps back." He shook his head, urgency lacing his every word. "I know, Claire, I know it won't be easy, but I've realized that I don't want to live my life without you. I want us to build a future together, to start a family, to face every challenge side by side. I can't promise perfection, but I promise this: I will never stop trying for us." Her breath hitched, and she glanced down at the floor, overwhelmed by the raw honesty in his words. "Ryan, I want that too, more than anything. But how can we make it work? I'm scared that we'll just keep hurting each other." He squeezed her hands tighter, his voice dropping to a soft, pleading tone. "Then let me prove it to you. I want to be the man who stands by you, who supports you, who loves you unconditionally. I've learned that love isn't just about grand gestures or promises. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, even when we're afraid. I'll show you, Claire. I'll spend every day proving it." For a moment, silence hung between them, broken only by the distant announcements echoing through the terminal. Claire's heart battled between caution and desire, fear and hope. Her gaze dropped to the small velvet box in Ryan's other hand, which he had held out to her. "What's this?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with curiosity and apprehension. Ryan took a deep breath. "Do you remember the family heirloom I told you about? The one I promised would always protect you, even if I wasn't there?" Her hands trembled as she took the box, opening it slowly to reveal a delicate pendant, intricately crafted, shining under the fluorescent lights. Memories of the promise he had made earlier in their relationship flooded back, the heartfelt vow, the quiet moment when he had sworn that nothing would ever harm her while he loved her. I remember," she whispered, tears spilling over. "You promised me this?" "I promised you," he said firmly, eyes locking onto hers. "And I meant every word. This heirloom isn't just a piece of jewelry. It's a symbol of my love, my commitment, and my willingness to change, to be better, to be the man you deserve." Claire clutched the pendant to her chest, her breath catching in her throat. The weight of the gesture, combined with the sincerity in his voice, broke down the remaining walls she had built. "Ryan, it's beautiful, and it reminds me of everything I love about you, how deeply you care, how much you fight for us." He took a step closer, voice softening. "Claire, I can't promise that everything will be easy, but I can promise that I will never stop fighting for you, for us. I want to build a family, a home filled with love, laughter, and trust. I want you by my side through it all. Please, don't leave Austin. Don't leave us." Her fingers traced the pendant thoughtfully, feeling the weight of his words settle in her heart. She had been torn between leaving and staying, between fear and love. But now, seeing him stand there, willing to lay himself bare, she felt the old certainty of their bond reawaken. I believe you, Ryan," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I believe in us, and I know I can't leave you, not like this, not after everything." A relieved smile broke across his face, and he pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as if the world itself might try to take her away. "Thank you," he whispered, voice muffled against her hair. "Thank you for giving us another chance. I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it." Claire pulled back slightly, looking up at him, eyes shining with unshed tears. "I trust you, Ryan. I trust that we can get through this, together." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Then let's start over, here and now. No more secrets, no more fear. Just us and the future we're going to build. The airport around them faded into the background, the noise and bustle replaced by the quiet certainty of two hearts finding their way back to each other. In that moment, the pendant in Claire's hand became more than an heirloom. It became a symbol of hope, trust, and unwavering love. Ryan and Claire stood together, hands entwined, ready to face the challenges ahead. The airport announcements and rolling suitcases continued, but they no longer mattered. What mattered was the bond between them, stronger now for the trials it had endured, and the unspoken promise that no distance, fear, or mistake could ever sever. With the heirloom resting against her heart and Ryan by her side, Claire knew one thing with absolute certainty. Love, when true and unwavering, had the power to heal, to restore, and to create a future worth fighting for. And that morning, as sunlight streamed through the airport windows, they stepped forward together, ready to embrace the life they were destined to build.
The late afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow across Austin as Ryan pulled into the driveway of their home. His heart was racing, but this time it wasn't from fear or urgency. It was a mixture of hope, relief, and anticipation. After the chaos of the past days, after the pain and misunderstandings, Claire was finally returning, and Ryan knew with an unshakable certainty that they were going to make things right. The moment the front door opened, Claire stepped inside, suitcase in hand, her eyes locking with his. "Ryan," she said softly, a mixture of determination and tenderness in her voice. "We need to be together. If we're ever going to make our dreams real, our family, our life, we can't do it apart." Ryan dropped the keys he'd been holding and crossed the room in long strides, gathering her into a tight embrace. "I've waited for you," he murmured against her hair, relief and love mingling in his words. "I didn't know how I'd survive not having you here, not knowing if we could get back to where we belong." Claire buried her face into his chest, breathing in the familiar scent she had missed more than she had realized. "I couldn't leave you, Ryan. Even when I thought leaving would give me clarity, it only made me realize that everything I want, everything I need, is here with you." Ryan held her at arm's length and gazed into her eyes, a playful glint appearing despite the seriousness of their reunion. "Well, if you're staying, we need to set a few ground rules." She raised an eyebrow, lips twitching into a small smile. "Ground rules. Oh, this should be interesting. And what might those be, Mr. I Promise to Be Better?" He grinned, a mischievous spark lighting up his features. "Rule number 1, no more secrets. Rule number 2, no more leaving me hanging when things get tough. And rule number 3, well, you'll find out soon enough." Claire laughed softly, a sound that felt like home to him. "Fine, but I have a few rules of my own. Number 1, no more stealing my dessert. Number 2, you have to take out the trash every Wednesday without complaints. And number 3, you must never, ever make me cry like that again." Ryan chuckled, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "I think we can handle that. And for the record, dessert theft is a crime of love." Their laughter echoed through the house, the tension that had shadowed their relationship finally lifting. Ryan led Claire into the living room, where sunlight spilled across the floorboards, illuminating the little details of the home they were going to build together. The family heirloom he had sent her now rested in her hands, catching the light and reminding them both of the promise that had guided them back to this moment. "Do you remember why I gave you this?" Ryan asked gently, nodding toward the pendant. Claire held it close to her heart. "Of course I do. It's a reminder of your promise and your love. Even when we were apart, I could feel it. I could feel you fighting for us." "And I always will," he said, voice steady and warm. "I promise to protect you, Claire, in every way I can. Not just physically, but with my heart, my actions, everything I am. And now, being back together, I can finally show you just how much that means." She smiled, eyes glistening with tears, and placed a hand on his chest. "I know, Ryan, and I want to do the same for you. No more hiding, no more fear. Just us, always."
A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by the soft ticking of the wall clock and the distant sounds of the city beyond their windows. Yet the quiet was not empty. It was rich with understanding, with the knowledge that they had survived their trials and emerged stronger for it. Then, with a playful glint in her eye, Claire teased, "You know, I still can't believe you thought I'd actually leave Austin for good. I mean, really, Ryan, you know me better than that." Ryan laughed, shaking his head. "I should have known, but can you blame me? You make it hard to think clearly when you're the one person I can't live without." "Is that so?" she asked, stepping closer, hands on her hips. "Well, I suppose I'll let you off the hook this time, but don't expect me to be so forgiving next time you panic." He grinned, wrapping his arms around her again, pressing his lips to her forehead. "Deal. But let's be honest, we're not exactly conventional. Our way of communicating might be a little chaotic, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for the world." Claire leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her own. "I wouldn't either. Our arguments, our laughter, our stubbornness, it's all part of us. And if this is how we express love, then I'll take it. Every single bit." They shared a quiet moment, smiling at each other, the weight of the past months dissolving in the warmth of their reunion. It was a playful, tender understanding. They could fight, they could argue, they could stumble, but they would always find their way back. That was the essence of their love, the thing that made it enduring, unique, and unbreakable. Ryan glanced around the room, then back at Claire, determination in his eyes. "So, what's next for us?" he asked, playful yet earnest. She laughed softly, tilting her head. "Next, we start living. No more running from our problems, no more fear. We build our life together, our home, our family, our dreams. And maybe, just maybe, we keep arguing over dessert every now and then." "Deal," he said, pulling her close once more. "And I promise I'll always fight for us, even when life gets messy. Even when we fight, especially then. Because you, Claire, are worth everything." Tears filled her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy, relief, and love. "And you, Ryan, are my home," she whispered, "always." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over their home, Ryan and Claire stood together, holding hands, smiling at one another with the quiet certainty that their love had endured every test. Their playful arguments, tender moments, and unwavering commitment were more than just a way of life. They were the proof that love, no matter how challenging, could survive and thrive. In that moment, the world outside seemed to fade, leaving only the warmth of their hearts, the laughter, and the knowledge that they were finally together. And as the first stars began to twinkle in the sky above Austin, Ryan and Claire embraced, ready to face every challenge, every joy, and every ordinary day, together at last.